We are the Youth Mental Health Development Academy, speaking with Miss Amy Neville, founder of the Alex Neville Foundation. First question is, how does knowing your worth affect your mental health?
How does knowing your worth affect your mental health? Well, if we have a true understanding of our worth and where our place is in the world, within our friend group, within our family, then our confidence is greater. We feel safer. We make better choices. When our self-worth or our worth is feeling low, we tend to fall into bad choices, and for some of us, that might be eating a whole pint of ice cream. For others, that could be self-harm or substance misuse.
When did you feel comfortable talking about your mental health struggles with others?
When I first started, that's a loaded question. Wow, you guys are just hitting me really hard here. That's okay. That's okay. When did I first start feeling comfortable about mental health? Well, I don't know if I've ever really felt comfortable sharing any mental health issues, but the loss that we've experienced in our life, the loss of Alexander, is far too great to not talk about. His story has a lot of importance. So the reason I share, and yes, it causes me stress, it makes me sad, it brings up those grief feelings every single day, but that Alex's story is valuable, and there's a lot of other people in families just like mine that need the information that we needed at the time of Alex's death. So getting out there and sharing these things can help save others.
Can you share with us a little bit about who you are and what your background is?
Sure. So my name's Amy Neville, and I am the director of the Alexander Neville Foundation. Our foundation came to be after the loss of my 14-year-old son, Alex, to a counterfeit pill that he purchased on Snapchat. He believed he was buying an oxycodone, and it turned out that it was actually illicit fentanyl. All counterfeit drugs, all drugs out in these spaces are counterfeit, and they are all made with fentanyl at just varying degrees of it. And so that is where my purpose shifted, right? I needed to take that energy of taking care of this rambunctious, spirited, brilliant 14-year-old and channel it somewhere. And that's how our foundation was founded. And so we set out to learn everything we could about the illicit fentanyl crisis and this co-occurring social media harms crisis that we're having. And now we take that information and we turn around and share it with other people.
Thank you.
This is a big question. What do you know about yourself now that you wished you would have known about yourself when you were younger?
What do I wish I knew about myself when I was younger that I know now? Shortly after Alex died, I realized there had been this note on his wall, and I didn't know exactly what it had on it, but eventually I found it. And one of the things that it said on there was, "Do uncomfortable work." And that has really become my mantra. And I had no idea that I was capable of doing such uncomfortable work and going out and talking to people about these issues every single day, every week, every month, all year long. I never shut up about it. It's just too important. So really being able to put myself out there in these spaces, it almost sometimes feels like I'm watching a movie of somebody else's life doing these things, but it really is me. And so it's the fact that I am capable of doing the uncomfortable work.
What advice would you give young adults today?
I think it's important that young adults understand that people do care about them. Sometimes, days can be really dark. We've seen images online that are making us feel bad. We've had a fight with somebody that we really love. Our parents are mad at us, whatever the case may be. But there is always a brighter day ahead. These situations are temporary, and we should not be making, permanent decisions to these temporary problems. There is a way through it, but it's going to take talking to somebody. It's going to take doing that uncomfortable work and putting yourself out there, whether it be mom, dad, best friend, or calling one of the anonymous helplines that exist in the world. There is always help out there, and I think it's really important to know that you can reach out. It will be okay. Thank you.
How did you find your worth?
How did I find my worth? How did I find my worth? My worth for the longest time, and still is wrapped up in being a mom. From the second I had my kiddo, I love being a mom. I never knew I would love being a mom so much. I have my daughter now, and that is like my greatest joy is being Alexander's mom and being Eden's mom. And my husband and I might take a vacation, but we'd end up talking about the kids the whole time, and then we'd end up taking them back to that same spot because we felt like they missed out on something. And so my worth was really tied up in the job I did as a mom. And of course, when you lose your child in such a horrible way, that worth is shattered. You feel worthless. You feel like you didn't do your job. But from that, I kind of found a new worth. Yes, being Eden's mom is still very much a worthy job, but this worth in going out and talking to people and connecting with people and helping other people through their hard times is really important to me now. And I guess that would be where my worth comes from these days.
Thank you.
If you could be remembered for one thing, what would it be?
If I could be remembered for one thing, what would it be? I hope that I would be remembered as a good mom. That's the struggle in life these days. I'll never forget Alex's celebration of life. I was looking at a photo album somebody had made for me, and I was thumbing through it. And I remember one of the moms of his friends that he had been in school with since kindergarten, and he was in our scout troop, and so I was very connected to this family. I'll never forget. She came over and she put her hand on my shoulder, and she said to me, "You're a good mom, Amy." She probably has no idea how important those words to me were in that moment, but when all is said and done, I hope that's how I'm remembered.
Thank you.
What's a common myth or misconception about your job?
The common myth or misconception about my job is that I have a staff. It's all me all the time. My favorite, I get these emails or voicemails. Like, we're trying to reach Amy Neville. I'm like, well, who do you think's answering these emails? So that would be one interesting misconception. And there's also this misconception that people, while I enjoy the work, I really enjoy what I'm doing. I certainly wouldn't enjoy it if I was just doing this as a job, But at the end of the day, I would trade it all. I know we've saved lives. I've heard from people that we save lives, but I would trade all of that to have my kid back. Like, there will never be a point where any of this is ever worth losing my kid. And I think sometimes people think that the fact that I can come out and do these things, that somehow I'm over it or somehow I've moved on, but that's just not the case.
What's the best compliment someone has ever given you?
The best compliment someone has ever given me, the best compliments come from the young people. When they come up and tell me that I'm their favorite speaker that they've had, or what I said really meant a lot to them, those are the best compliments. Those mean everything to me.
And we're going to end it with this question. Any podcast you would recommend to us and listeners?
Any podcast I would recommend? That's a hard question. I do listen to things. I listen to books. I listen to books more, so can I make a recommendation on that instead? There is a book right now called Who's Raising the Kids by Susan Lin, the founder of Fair Play. I would recommend, 2 weeks ago, I probably wouldn't have recommended it to youth, but my daughter's writing a paper right now, so I gave her the book for this paper, and she's like, Mom, this is fascinating. I have to read the whole book. So I recommend it to everybody. It talks about advertising and how it impacted our kids all the way into the social media space.
Thank you, Amy, for joining us, and keep an ear out for our next podcast.